Yeah, and I think mentorship is like this hidden resource that I hope we bring more of it to the surface, because as I shared, right, when Scott became my mentor, that's when things really started to click for me. And I probably had many mentors in my childhood who, obviously, I don't think a parent can be a mentor because a parent is always going to be a parent first. But a lot of the times when I'm talking with moms, they'll say, like, what can I do to help my 18-year-old son who's failing to launch? And, like, to be honest, like, there really isn't like a ton of things that you could just force him to do, right? Because he's his own young man. Typically what I say is, I said, your voice is so close to him, like he sees you as mom. And one of the really big reframes that I've realized, because I've talked to so many moms and I've said like the same things over and over again, I've realized that the sons see their mom as it's an extension of them, right? So if the son is struggling, by default, the son's probably like, mom's struggling, right? So of course, mom wants me to do good because then it's a reflection on her. So, right. So it's almost like, does she really care about me, like just as me as her son? Or does she want this so that she can like put a Facebook post up that I got Dean's List at college, right? Like there's definitely a dynamic there. So when I come in and say, hey, dude, you're vaping, you're drinking, you're smoking weed, you're playing video games, do you want to get a job? It doesn't matter to me if he does it or not, because there's no status play. And that's the difference that I'm noticing with a lot of these guys is it's a lot of it is the same information that the mom has said. It's just coming from me.
Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Break podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nafisa Sikandri. Today, I'll be speaking to DJ Logory about saving our young men. Let me briefly introduce him before I bring him on. DJ was a young man who felt lost in his early 20s, even though he had loving, supportive parents. Through that experience, he saw firsthand how many young men struggle silently while parents search for ways to truly reach their sons. He understands what it's like to lack confidence and direction, and that lasting change has to come from within. That realization led him to create Be That Guy, a movement designed to help young men build confidence, purpose, and a sense of identity in a way that feels authentic and relatable. Hi, DJ. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today, Dr. Sikandri. I am so excited to get rolling.
I'm excited to talk to you as well. This is such a great conversation that we're going to have today about saving our young men, right?
Yes, we need to save our young men. I was one of those young men who needed saving, and now it's an honor to repay the favor, right, if we can.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got started. I did do a little brief introduction about you. Mm-hmm. So just tell us a little bit more about what got you to doing this and why this is such a passion project for you.
So when I was 21 years old, so I graduated college from in Rochester, New York, and I graduated from a college called St. John Fisher College. And when I graduated, I had this big grand vision of what I thought my life was going to look like. I had a job, was technically an internship in marketing and graphic design. And what happened was I ended up getting fired from that job in a very interesting way. And when that happened, all of what I thought was going to be my future essentially dissolved. And I had to start making some corrections, or some mid-course corrections, as my father likes to say. And around that time, I was starting to kind of panic a little bit because all of my friends were getting jobs, all of my classmates were getting jobs, and they were posting about them on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I kept asking myself the question, like, what did I miss? I thought I did everything right. And each day I was slowly getting worse, not only with, I think, my belief in myself, but my confidence, my self-image. And what ended up happening was one day, I actually ran into an old basketball coach of mine named Scott Gibbs. And we met at my gym, actually, that I was working out at. He saw me, he came up to me. I hadn't talked to him in probably 3 or 4 years. And he asked me how I was doing. And for the first time in like 6 months, I decided to be honest with somebody. And I was like, I'm actually kind of a mess. I could actually really use some help right now and some guidance. And so he essentially became my first mentor at age 21. And he started to kind of coach me on a weekly basis. We met maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and we started working together for the next 3 to 4 years. And around COVID time, we decided to start a business called Acres of Diamonds. And Acres of Diamonds is a mental fitness and leadership business that we ended up creating an 8-week corporate mental fitness training for various businesses within the Rochester area. And as I got more heavily involved with that, I got just introduced to more parents, and specifically moms, who was like, hey, my son is 17, 18 years old. He's lacking some confidence or some discipline, a little bit of direction. Would you be open to working with him? And so that kind of started what is now Be That Guy today. And so a lot of the young men that I work with now, it's kind of like me when I was in that young, late teens, early 20s type of season of my life. And so we work on building better habits together, holding each other accountable, discipline, confidence, and all of this is really rooted in self-belief. I think because of the world that we live in today, I think young men can very quickly lack belief in themselves because they get to see everything that they're not online through TikTok, social media, all of that stuff. And so really, I think what we're doing is we're helping young men believe in themselves again through accountability and building better habits. So that's kind of my whole story and how it all came to.
I feel like it's a really confusing, if not scary time to be a guy right now. From a woman's perspective, I'm seeing a lot of women post about men aren't approaching me. Why aren't men dating? What's going on with the loneliness epidemic when it comes to men? But it's scary in that there's the Me Too movement that's happening where a lot of women started falsely accusing men that made a lot of men very afraid. Mm-hmm. Like they don't even know what to do. Like they're saying chivalry is dead. It's like if you open the door for somebody, they might yell at you and be like, I'm fully capable of opening my own door, but they don't realize that that's sending a very terrible message to men. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm seeing. But what are you seeing that men are currently struggling with? If it's not the toxic masculinity issue, what are some things that young men are struggling with right now that you're trying to address or help them with?
I think it's just the lack of social interaction right now, just because of the way that the majority of young men have been raised today, right? And if you think about, young men, what age did young men get a smartphone in this day and age? I personally got a smartphone when I was, I think, a senior in high school, and I didn't get social media till I was a sophomore, junior in college. Now, today's day and age, they're probably getting that much younger. And when you have access to technology that is as impressive as it is today, I think naturally you are more comfortable, right? Technology is created to make things more convenient. And so I think a lot of the problems that guys are facing with today when it comes to like relationships or dating or not being seen as creepy or anything like that is a lot of this can just be done without ever actually talking to a woman or to somebody who you might be interested in, right? If you think about the dating apps, or you think about all the online communities, or you think about just how easy it is to order food to your door and never actually communicate with people, I think a lot of the women who, like the Me Too thing, I think a lot of this really comes down to confidence within a man. If he was to approach a woman who was interested, who he was interested in, how does he approach her? How does he make her feel safe? How does he stay curious, ask her a question and actually listen to her without the thought of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be creepy and this is going to go horrible? That takes reps of actually getting in the arena and actually doing that. I can't tell you how many times going through college, I watched my buddies fail, quote unquote fail, talking to a woman, and we came back and we busted his chops, and then they like went back out and they tried to talk to another one. And, in a night they might've talked to 10 different women. And then one of them said, hey, I'm actually interested in you. Like, yes, you could buy me a drink. And then it was great. And like some of those guys actually ended up finding their girlfriends that way. And so today's day and age, I don't think guys are really doing that a lot because of not only the Me Too movement, but also because of the fact that I can just talk to all of them just from my phone at home. Yet eventually, do you want to actually go meet her out in person? Do you want to actually get some reps with social skills? And so I think that's really the big challenge that I'm personally seeing with a lot of these guys is it's very easy for them to stay in their rooms, to play their video games, and to be comfortable on their phones and never actually have to interact in person.
Well, the whole interaction in person is very different than sending a one-liner text, right? And so,
there's body language.
You guys, I'm sure what you're doing is similar to what girls are doing, is that we're talking to each other via text and very short-handed messages, or social media, just maybe saying one quick little thing that's not really meaningful. But to sit across from somebody and have a meaningful conversation, I feel like men and women are lacking that these days. I mean, I'm talking about the young kids, like you said, Thankfully, I didn't grow up with a phone when I was younger. You didn't end up growing
Mhm.
up with it until later. So you were able to develop those social skills.
Mhm.
But these kids are getting it in elementary school and middle school. All they're doing is watching videos,
Mhm.
texting, shorthand.
Yeah.
So how do you teach them those things? I mean, I think this is an epidemic that's affecting not only kids in the United States, but
Mhm.
around the world. So what if we don't do something, how do you think this is going to impact us in the future and how we're having conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think all we're really going to do is create more isolated young men, and to your point, probably some isolated women, right? I was actually having a talk with one of my good friends a couple nights ago, and we both were kind of talking about the challenges that women were facing, the challenges that men were facing, and I was like, I think men and women are both the problem and the solution. Like, I don't think it's geared towards one side. I think just because of the culture that we live in today, I think everybody is kind of getting affected by this. But one of the cool ways that I personally think that we can kind of start to put a little dent into the lack of socialness is this idea that I like to call getting in the arena. And it's something that we actually talk to a lot of the guys about who are interested in kind of pushing themselves a little bit like 10% outside of their comfort zone. And I'll give you a good example. One of the young men in our group, he's in his mid 20s and he wanted to get in the arena and just get better with his social skills. And so he was doing DoorDash actually. And he was doing DoorDash and he's in the process of now actually getting into like architecture school. Yet he's just doing this just for some income and stuff. And so what he did was part of his growth commitments on a week to week basis, we have the guys set a growth commitment, and it's essentially a professional commitment that they're making to the group that's going to help them grow professionally. And so this young man said, hey, I'm going to talk to 8 people that I've never talked to before. Doesn't matter if it's a guy or a woman. He said, I'm going to say hello to them, ask them one question, and then I have to listen to what they're saying. And then I have to report back into the group what the person's name was, the question I asked, and what they said. And so this young man did this. And I remember the first week he came back, and I think he had, out of the 8, I think he hit like 6 of them. And we were like, all right, like, who are the 6 people? He's like, I met this guy, Mark. He's like, I delivered Mark some food. I asked him what the highlight of his day was. And he said me actually asking him what the highlight of his day was the highlight of his day. And he's like, we had a good chuckle, and he was like, it was great. And so he literally went through and told us all these people that he had met. And excuse me. And this is one of the things that I think is super important is if you're, and we'll just use guys just because that's obviously the typical person that we work with. If you want to get better at just having social interactions, it doesn't have to be with women. One of the guys in our group, he's 24, 25 years old. He's one of the most confident young men I've ever met. And I asked him, I said, what are the things that you do to be confident? The first thing he said was exercise. He said, I think that's very important to men. He said, the second thing is to actually be okay with rejection. He said, so you actually have to go get reps in being rejected. Then the third thing he said was to be okay, comfortable being alone. Go for a walk by yourself and just be okay with your own presence. He said, I think that really helps with confidence. And he goes, and to take that even a step further, if you are in a social setting, so you're at a gym, a library, a bar, a fitness center, whatever, he said, just talk to anybody. He said, it doesn't have to be a woman. He said, talk to the guy at the front desk. Hey, how's it going, man? Hey, real quick, what's the highlight of the day been so far? Just that interaction gets guys just out of their comfort zone a little bit. It's one of the things that I actually do every time I get in the elevator at my apartment complex with somebody else. I'll always ask them something. I'll always just say, hey, like, I didn't do anything fun today. And just like they'll look at me and they're like, oh my God, he just said something, right? He didn't just look down at his phone and look into the corner like a helpless little squirrel, right? Like I actually said something to them and they're like so taken back. So I encourage guys, like if you walk by somebody in the hallway, say hi. If you're in a stairwell, say hi, just a quick nod. It just gets guys out of their comfort zone. As I like to say, like that 10% push outside of the comfort zone.
That's funny you're talking about that. It just made me remember my own self in my early 20s and late teens, how terrified. I had so much anxiety as a young adult. And the idea of dating terrified me. The idea of talking to people terrified me. And the way that I did it was when I turned 19, I challenged myself to overcome as many fears as I had. And one of those was talking to people, talking to strangers. And so I started talking to kids, and I thought that's how I was going to practice to see how I my social skills, or talk to older people.
Yeah.
And nowadays, a lot of us don't have much expectation from the young generation. We just think they're all going to lack social skills, so nobody talks to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they actually do say something, it's a nice surprise. And so I think
Right.
encouraging them and not being worried. It's funny because I was practicing so much when I was younger to say hi to people that I went to New York one time. I remember I'm standing there at the grocery store just waiting for my aunt to finish. And I was saying hi to everybody that walked by. And, in New York, they're not used to that.
Oh, no.
Dirty look, like, who the heck is she? And why is she saying hi to us? Who is this California sunshine trying to they didn't like that at all. So it's like a time and a place, I guess, for it. But just like you said, just keep practicing. Talk to a tree, talk to an old person, talk to a dog, talk to children, and get comfortable talking to people because COVID really, I think, messed up a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, especially the younger generation. I mean, a lot of these guys that I talk to, right, when I'm kind of just being introduced to them, they're like, I graduated in COVID, right? I graduated online, so I didn't get to sit in an auditorium with hundreds of people and converse with the people next to me. So I think that's a huge part. And a lot of the parents that I talk to, specifically the majority is moms, they'll say like COVID messed my son up. Like it really kind of screwed up just his natural social interactions, his friendships, right? Him actually getting out like into the world and doing things. And so I always encourage guys like a really simple social interaction you can have. And I remember I used to do this when I was still working in corporate Americas. Anytime I walked by somebody in the hallway, I always said hi, even if they were like looking down and they really didn't want to say hi to me. I was always like, hey, how's it going? And like, I always would do that. And it was just the approach anxiety, you can call it. It was just enough to where I'm like, okay, I know I can do that. Right. And like, that was very, very helpful for me to develop my own social skills moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, even with my own relatives, when I see young kids going to dinner parties and all they're doing, it's very easy to hide behind your phone and not have to talk to anybody and just look busy.
Yeah.
But it really bothers me when I go to dinner parties and all my cousins and relatives are all the heads in the phone and nobody's talking to each other. I get mad and I tell them all to put their phones away and talk to each other. And then they end up having so much more fun when they do that. But it's that initial anxiety of how do I get started? And we were so lucky to grow up without having that as a crutch. And it's become a crutch now. So do you encourage these kids to go into situations and not carry their phone or have their phone away so that they're not tempted to look at it? Is that what you're doing?
It's one of the things where I'll actually ask the guys, I'll be like, how are you guys with your phones? Like, because I'm kind of curious, because one of the things that I always try to be is like, I never try to be judgmental of the guys, right? I don't know what they've been through, what their beliefs are. And so it's my job to, express some curiosity. And so I'll say like, how do you guys think you're doing with your phones? And we actually had a young man last week who was like, I'm on my phone way too much. And he's like, and so he decided his growth commitment for that week was he was actually going to do 2 hours or less on his phone, and it tracks it all on the phone. And he deleted every single one of his social medias. And the ironic thing was he actually missed the next meeting because he didn't have any notifications. And I was like, where are you? And he's like, dude, I literally turned everything off. He's like, I totally forgot about our meeting. And I'm like, well, this is kind of ironic. Like, you really hit your growth habit so hard that you missed the actual session that week. But it was pretty cool because he's like, I feel so much less stressed. He's like, and one of the really cool things he said too was, he goes, I enjoy spending time alone outside now. He's like, I'm not like, my thoughts aren't like scary or stressing me out. He's like, I breathe better. He's like, I look at like nature a little bit easier. And I'm like, like there's definitely something to that, right? Decreasing the phone usage and like looking at this phone versus like looking up and looking at the world and breathing a little bit and taking in some fresh air. So yeah, so the phone usage is definitely something that I think we talk about with the guys, especially if they bring it up too.
Well, I love the fact that I'm reading articles that a lot of young people are going back to the flip phone.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I think it's such a valuable thing. And as I was talking to, I remember, I'll share a quick story. So we ran a retreat in August of last year with the guys in our group. And so one of the nights, one of the older guys had an idea. He's like, hey, let's play like charades. And he's like, everybody phones off. And so like every dude, it's probably 9:30 at night. We just got back from dinner. We're all excited. Every dude put their phone in the kitchen in like this big like fruit basket. And we played charades. 10 dudes played 2 teams of charades. And it was so funny. Like the things we were acting out, it was some of the most entertaining, comical things that I've ever experienced. And not one guy was on their phone. And
Wow.
I was thinking, I'm like, this is what guys I think deep down really want. Like they want that brotherhood. They want to just mess around with each other and they want to just have fun. Like I really don't think, like I think the world has told us to value filters and Instagram and likes and comments. And when you take it all away, we actually, I think, have more fun. And I got to see that on like a very visceral level. And so I remember that so much. And I remember after the guys were like, why don't we play in charades again? Right. And like guys want that type of brotherhood and that type of community without the phones.
And research has shown that over and over again, where people were sent away to a camping ground and all their phones were taken away for a week. And they come back and it's amazing the impact on their physiological response. Their blood pressure is down, they're sleeping better, their digestion improves, they are calmer, they're happier. And this is proven over and over again. And brain rot is a real thing now, where kids are just laying in bed scrolling and not even aware of what they're watching anymore. And I know I had to do that this year, stop myself from scrolling, because mine isn't Instagram or TikTok. I'm on YouTube Shorts, and it's so easy to get my information, my news in 1-minute clips. Before you know it, you've scrolled 60 little clips that are 1 minute and a whole hour has gone by. So I cut way back, and that's made a huge difference for me. And I love that people are, even adults my age, are going towards dumb phones now, which is such a great trend that we're going towards.
Is that what we call them now? Dumb phones instead of smartphones? Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. I want a dumb phone. I think it's totally necessary, because one of the things we do is we track sleep. So like each guy will have like a bedtime and a wake time. And the main goal of that is obviously to provide a little structure for their day. And we know the values of sleep. And it also helps them with just putting their phone down and like going to bed at night. And I encourage a lot of the guys to get an analog alarm clock and keep their phone outside of their bedroom. And those analog alarm clocks, those things are violent. Like those things will wake you up out of a deep sleep. I ironically have had the exact same analog alarm clock from my aunt, who got me it in like 3rd or 4th grade. And it's just never broke. And so I'm like, I'm just going to use this thing until it breaks. And it's loyal to me. It always wakes me up. And so I encourage the guys to like keep the phone out, buy a $20 analog alarm clock, and you will sleep and wake up way better.
Well, once you fix your sleep routine and you have a bedtime routine where you go to bed the same time every single day and you wake up the same time, you're no longer going to need an alarm clock. Like mine's been such a huge part of my sleep routine that I no longer need an alarm clock, which is really nice. Like my body naturally wakes up. But those violent alarm clocks, I do remember that they do have some that are a lot softer now.
Yes.
They slowly build up, so they're not such a shock to your system.
Yeah.
But I love that idea of not having your phone in the room with you. I say that all the time. Mine is in the kitchen all the time, charging overnight. And if it's an emergency, somehow I will get alerted. I will figure it out, and I can hear the phone if it's ringing in the kitchen, but it's not in the bedroom. I'm not tempted if I wake up in the middle of the night to start scrolling. So I'm glad that you're focusing on that with the kids, because when you sleep, you're resting, you're repairing, and you're more productive, more functional the next day. So baseline.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of studies coming out about the importance of sleep. Like more people, I think, are interviewing sleep experts, like sleep doctors. And it really is, I think in Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep, he talks about how it's like it's like a legal performance enhancing drug. It's like the most impressive legal performance enhancing drug that's ever been created is sleep. So I wish more people would take it more seriously.
If people knew what happens during sleep, they would be running to bed every night. Like
yes.
Your brain is literally washing itself. That just blew me away when I learned that my brain is literally washing itself, clearing out all the debris and the junk that I've collected, editing all the scenes that I've seen throughout the day,
Mhm.
and then my body is resting and repairing itself. Why would I not allow it to do that? We would never let our phone continue
Oh
to
yeah.
function that way. Why are we
Mhm.
doing that to ourselves?
Yeah. And if you and sometimes you think about, I think they actually talk about this in the book Why We Sleep, but I think it was like Tom Brady and LeBron James, like they were talking about how many hours of sleep they got per night. And I think LeBron James was getting like 10 to 11 hours of sleep every night just because he knew the value of it with his performance. And it's like, man, these are world-class athletes. It's like, what if we treated ourselves like a world-class athlete? Imagine how much more stuff you'd get done, how much better you would feel. Right. So yeah, I think, keep the sleep top of mind.
But I want to focus on that or emphasize the fact that it's not the number of hours of sleep, it's when you sleep.
Mm.
So a lot of kids are like, well, if I sleep from 5 a.m. until like 2 or 3 p.m, that's good enough. But it's not, because our
Yeah.
body and our brain are synced with the setting and rising of the sun.
Mhm.
And so when the melatonin level is at its peak, which is between 10 to 11 o'clock at night until 2 a.m, that's when we need to be asleep, because
Mhm.
that's when we can go into that deep coma-like sleep. So if the sun is setting around 7 o'clock, it takes a while for our melatonin levels to increase. Of course, with all the lights that we have in our home, that makes a big difference as far as like how much melatonin we have. And the solution is not taking melatonin. I want to say
Yes.
that. We want to naturally allow our body to be in sync with the rising and setting of the sun.
Mhm.
And get into that deep sleep between 10 at night and 2 in the morning, and be asleep during that 4-hour block.
Mhm.
I've kept track of my sleep, and the majority of my deep coma-like sleep is in the first half of my sleep.
Mhm.
And then the rest of it, you're cycling back and forth between deep sleep and dream sleep.
Yeah.
And so the last thing we do before we wake up is in our REM sleep, which is our dream cycles.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we have both of those. And I just wanted to emphasize that it's not how many hours, because I know a lot of teenagers, they're up all night and they're sleeping all day. That's not the solution.
I completely agree. And I think that's a very important point, because a lot of the guys, when they come in to our work, they're like, I'm like, what time are you going to bed? They're like, I don't know, like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm like, what time are you waking up? And they're like, I don't know, like 11 or so. They're like, so I'm getting the 9 hours, or I'm getting 8 hours. I'm like, yeah, it's jacking up your whole schedule, dude. I was like, we got to adjust this a little bit. So typically the guys will get more towards like the 10 to 11 bedtime, and then like the 7 to 8 wake time, so that it can kind of be a little bit more natural.
Perfect. And I know a lot of guys are offered jobs, especially when you're starting out in your career. If you're working for Amazon, for example, or whatever company, and if you're a beginner, they offer you the night shift, and they might even pay you a little bit more. I've had so many of my patients get off that schedule because that little payment is not worth it. That's the World Health Organization actually considers that a carcinogen, that
Oh yeah.
sleep cycle of sleeping
Mhm.
overnight or being awake all night and then sleeping during the day. The night shift is not a healthy thing. No matter how much money they're giving you, do
Mhm.
not take that position.
Yeah, that should be illegal. The night shift position at Amazon, because we know, I mean, to your point, right? It's a carcinogen, right? It's literally killing people.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be Amazon. It could be whatever. But I know that for a lot of young people, that's what they offer, because the older people understand that, and there's no way
Mhm.
they will take that position.
Oh yeah.
But you do have options. You don't have to take that. Go somewhere else. Do
Yep.
your
I
9 to 5.
completely agree.
Yeah. So another thing that I did mention this earlier, can you talk a little bit about what's going on right now with this whole, I don't want to like say feminist, but there is this negative reaction towards toxic masculinity.
Mhm.
And I don't like that term at all, because it completely emasculates men. So can you talk a little bit about that, and how that's impacting the men's mindsets, and what the solution would be, or the alternative would be to that?
It's funny you bring that up, because yesterday I was sitting on my balcony, and every morning I sit on my balcony and I have breakfast, and for some reason that word popped into my head, toxic masculinity. And I really don't believe in what I think it is. And I personally believe that it's a good thing to have strong, driven, capable, useful men in the world. I also think it's a really good thing to have strong, driven, capable women in the world. I recommend we all be those things. I don't recommend that one gender overpowers the other and vice versa. And so I think when it comes to the feminist movement or the toxic masculinity, I really look at this more of like, how can we create together instead of compete together? Right? Like I think of like really great relationships are people who integrate their lives together. They don't compete against one another. And I don't know if this is women wanting to feel more like the dominant sex or the dominant gender and trying to push men down and not letting us carry your luggage to the airport or not letting us open the doors for you. Because I think there is something that you mentioned in the beginning when, let's say a woman doesn't let a man open her door for him, she's basically removing a little bit of his usage and kind of screwing up with like the way he's biologically wired, right? As men, we are wired to protect and to provide. That doesn't mean just financial provide. That means like provide safety, right? Provide love, provide care. Like that is personally the way that I look at it. And so I think when it talks about like toxic masculinity, I think it's just a term that we use to get clicks. In all honesty, I think it's a term that we use to piss people off. I think it's a term that is very trendy. And I think the word toxic creates so many different ideas of what that actually means. And I think I've even used the word toxic in like making fun of it a little bit. I was on a panel not too long ago last year about redefining masculinity. Like, what does it mean to be masculine in the 21st century? And there's a great book by Jason Wilson called The Man the Moment Demands. And this book reinforces a lot of what I believe in. And essentially it's being adaptable. I think masculinity today is knowing when to exercise your hard skills, like confidence, discipline, toughness, and intensity, and knowing when to exercise your soft skills, empathy, kindness, love, curiosity, and understanding that in any given moment, I might need to change, be adaptable to be the man that the moment demands. And so that's a lot of the stuff that I learned from Jason Wilson's book. And so, I think I still can learn more about the term toxic masculinity, but in all honesty, I don't really believe in it. I think I think it was created to piss people off, in all honesty.
Well, you're right. It is pitting women against men, and it's confusing women because now women don't know what a real man is. And when he's being kind and generous and wants to provide and protect or open the door and do all of those things, women don't understand how to take that anymore. And so when they're no longer talking to each other and they're pitted against each other, how are they supposed to come together? And that's impacting future relationships. And like I said, the confusion for women, instead of competing, we need to complement each other. It's okay to admit that I don't want to be as strong as a man. I don't want to have to do all the things men do. That's not equality for me. But for some women, they're buying into this mentality that I am everything that a man is, I have to be, instead of we need to complement each other. We need to complement our strengths and let him lead where he's strong. Let me lead when I'm strong. And I think that's being lost in this divisive conversation of toxic masculinity, or I'm a strong, proud feminist. And these jargon buzzwords are creating division instead of bringing people together.
Yeah. And I think too, there's a little mixture of maybe ego involved and even, I mean, I don't know a better word to use, but like intelligence, right? Like I think people who are very, whether you want to call it emotionally intelligent, emotionally aware, never really get too aggressive, right? Because they're always like curious and they're always kind of like, like maybe maybe there's, right? What part of the problem am I, right, producing, right? What do I maybe need to change? And so I personally try to surround myself with people who are curious, who are aware of, hey, we're all kind of broken and messed up in our own way. And I think it's really cool when we're actually open to talking about that. Whenever I see a woman or a guy expressing toxic traits, I'm just like, stay away from them, right? Because they're just honestly probably going to seep into your awareness. And then, you become, the average of those 5 people. So I think those people too, if they are expressing toxic traits, whether it's toxic femininity or toxic masculinity, I think they just want to feel significant. And right, don't we all want to feel significant, right? We all want to feel seen, heard, and understood. And I think when people are like, that's toxic masculinity, that's this, I think it's putting them above them. And I think it's creating this gap of significance so that they feel good and that they feel strong. And I don't agree with that. I think we can do a better job of respecting people, even if they believe in things that we don't believe in, right? I think that's where curiosity comes in. I think everybody's on their own path, right? That's cool. As long as it's not, affecting me, my income, and my family and things like that. Like I'm pretty solid with whatever you want to do, yet I don't need to feel bigger by putting you down, right? Like that's, I think, an important piece to all of that toxicness.
Well, I love the way that you said that it's just toxic behavior, regardless of whether it's feminism or masculinity. And let's call it what it is. It's the behavior that's toxic. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't why do we have to attach it to masculinity or femininity? It's just, let's recognize what the toxic behavior is and avoid that, and not paint all men with this wide brush that they're all masculine or they're all toxic, and all women that are all toxic, whatever. It's just, what really concerns me, and this is why I really wanted to have this conversation with you, is you are trying to help young men, but at the same time, this is helping women as well, because young women are being misled. Mm-hmm. They're being, there's a confusion is created through these social media posts. So a lot of young women don't know anymore what to look for. They don't even know how to recognize a healthy relationship. They don't even know what a healthy boundary is anymore. And so this is really impacting women and men. It's not just one or the other. And I'm glad that you're doing this to help the young men. And I hope that a lot of young women listening understand that this is also impacting them if we don't end up changing our thoughts and our ways of looking at things, and stop competing. And it's not us against you. We need to collaborate. We need to complement. We need to work together, because it's for the betterment of society. It's not, there's no way a dominant culture of women is going to be the answer, or just a dominant culture of men. Throughout society, we've always had them complement each other and support each other, even though, have we had mostly male leaders? Yes. Mm-hmm. Is the solution to have more female leaders? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think everybody needs to work towards their strengths. Mm-hmm. And that's not, I don't want to go towards the politics of it. I just think socially, we need to focus on getting along and complimenting each other, and also supporting the men in our lives, and the men in our lives need to support the women in their lives.
I completely agree. And I think too, I bet you if you looked at, so I don't even really know, like, what is the definition of toxic masculinity, right? I bet you if you looked at that definition and you took away the term toxic masculinity and you showed it to a couple women, there's probably pieces of that definition that they want, right? And so this is where I think it can be confusing to women, because then if I said, hey, by the way, this is what a toxic masculine man does, they're like, oh my God, am I toxic? Am I the problem? So now it just confuses the heck out of them, right? Because like, I think it's good to have men who, like, we can use the bar example just because I think it's a very simple example. I think it's good to have men who feel confident in talking to women. I think it's good to have confident men in the world. I also think it's good to have confident women in talking to men, right? I think it's good to have confident women in the world. Do I think there is a gender that should be more confident? No. I think we should both be strong, healthy, capable, useful humans. I think that will build a better world, right? And so, if we can understand that and realize that these definitions that we've created, it's almost like stereotypes, right? Like, there's parts of stereotypes that are probably true. That's probably why they were created in the beginning, right? So there's probably something to like the toxic masculinity or the toxic femininity, where it's like, I personally want a woman who's confident. I want a woman who can walk into any area and she feels like she owns the place. Doesn't mean she does, but she's got that energy. It's like, that's attractive to me. And I think I also would agree that a woman would probably want that in a man, right? I'm not abusing the power. I'm understanding that with great power comes great responsibility, right? I think there's an Abraham Lincoln quote that's like, if you want to test a man's power, test a man's character, give him power, right? So I think a lot of us, comes down to character, right? And this is where it kind of connects back to the ego as well.
And I think we need to distinguish that there is abusive behavior, there is toxic behavior, there is There are people that are abusing their power. I mean, we see a lot of our leaders are failing in that character test right there. But like I said, there's so much on social media that's confusing us and creating this division. Do you ever acknowledge or address the whole issue of why women are that whole scenario about would you choose a bear over a man in a room with? Do you guys ever talk about that? Can you?
So I heard about the thing, but refresh me what it is, because I probably have an idea of it.
I probably don't know the whole thing either, but basically a lot of women would rather be stuck in a room with a bear than a man, because the man is more likely to abuse them than a bear would.
That's horrible. Who the heck? Where's the data on that? Women really would rather be in a room with a bear than a man. What do they think? What do they think we're going to do to them? Right? Like that's. I think that's my next question. Is like, are we really that bad? Right? Like, have we really messed ourselves up that much? Because I think, and because I mentioned this like a little bit earlier, right? I think men and women are both the problems and the solutions, right? I think there's things men do that are not good that we should stop. And I think there's things we do that are good, and vice versa. Yet I can genuinely say I've had conversations with dozens, if not hundreds of young men, and they've told me things that like women have done to them. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that is horrible. And I've also talked to a lot of women, and they've told me things that men have done to them. And I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. And then I've also had really good stories, right? So the bear versus the man one, like, that's really interesting to me.
Well, I think it's the small percentage of these horrible cases that are constantly in our faces and constantly being talked about that's making it seem like it's the majority. And it's not. And it's the whole Me Too movement that came out. And during the early Me Too movement with the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation, I ended up siding with Johnny Depp after I watched the trial, because initially my inclination was believe all women. I bought into that whole believe all women. And then you realize there are some women that can be really, really awful. So I'm not going to believe all women. I'm going to believe facts. I'm going to believe the evidence. I'm going to believe the situation. And I'm not automatically going to jump on somebody's bandwagon and support them because they happen to be the same sex as I am. Mm-hmm. And as that proved after watching that trial, it's like I wasn't a Johnny Depp, like a major fan. I liked his movies. I didn't know much about the case. I didn't even follow any of it up until the trial. But after watching that trial, I was shocked that a woman could be that vindictive. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I started interviewing the other people about how women can be the abusive aggressor in a relationship as well. And so we need to talk about that more. And right now I'm all about the whole Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively situation. And again, I'm looking at Justin Baldoni as this sweet man that there's no evidence right now, as far as I'm concerned, there is no evidence that supports Blake Lively's claims against sexual harassment against this guy. And yet he has to pay all this money to defend himself. And after the Johnny Depp trial, so many men were like, I didn't have the money to defend myself. I went bankrupt trying to, I didn't have the celebrity. I didn't have the support. And I went bankrupt trying to support myself. I've lost everything, even though I was innocent and I didn't do anything because of that tendency to believe all women initially. And so in that case, I've become very passionate about trying to highlight both sides and for us not to be so tunnel visioned and so quick to judge somebody without having the full picture before we decide who's guilty and who's not.
Yeah. So that, I mean, you just walking me through that like breaks my heart, thinking about a man who, right, was innocent and now he's lost all of his financial means because of this. And one of the things that we actually work on the guys with is, so in our habit program, we kind of do hard skills in the beginning, and then we start to incorporate soft skills as we move throughout each week. And one of the skills that we talk about is curiosity. And curiosity being this superpower, I think, especially in men, where our egos are typically always up, right? We're always kind of defensive a little bit. And how can we be more curious? So I think to your point about both of these cases, right? If we can look at things with more curiosity, I think it allows us to let the facts do more of the telling, Right. Like as you were walking me through it, I'm like, I wonder if they did like a scenario where you didn't know it was Johnny Depp and Amber Heard or Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and it was just the facts of the case, and you didn't even know who the humans were.
Right.
Right. Like, what
Whether
if
male or female. Yeah.
whether they were male or female, like, what if you looked at it like that? Like, would that make things easier? Because now it removes all biases, it removes all history. Right. And so, which is a lot of the things that we do with the young men, because I'm a third party objective, right, looking at the life, right? So I don't have a history with them. And so I think that is a testament to the value of coaching and the value of mentorship and the value of like third parties is we don't have the history. We don't have the preconceived biases, and it makes it a little bit easier to be curious.
Yeah, and I think we need to be more supportive. And I like that you are helping young men understand all this and have these conversations and have this mentorship program. If they're not able to join your program, I hope other men step up and guide these men, because not everybody has a father figure that can guide them.
Yeah.
So they do need that support, but so do the women. The women need the same kind of support, that you can't just go and use excuses or just accuse somebody of something and think that that's okay. That's not okay either. And it's just not helping the true victims. And I think the reason I became so passionate and so angry in both situations is there are real victims, real women victims that these things have happened to. But when somebody makes it up, then it just negates all of that. And like recently I saw an article about this woman who accused this man who's very religious, upstanding citizen, who was very, very innocent. She accused him of rape, and evidence came up that she made the whole thing up, and she's serving 2 years in jail. And so this is happening. Where in the past they could get away with it, but not anymore, because people are beginning to be more open about what are the facts. Like you said, if we didn't know who was who and whether it's a male or female, how would we decide in that situation? And most of the times the facts speak for themselves.
Yeah. And there's why guys are so afraid to approach women at bars.
And then the women are complaining because nobody's approaching them.
Nobody's approaching them, right? So it's like, right. So I mean, it is, right. There's a lot of problems and everything we've talked about, but there probably are some solutions, right? That is going to require some curiosity and putting down the ego and really some character development. Right. I think that's really important.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you're doing this. And I hope more young men take advantage of this opportunity of working, whether with you, hopefully with you guys, and if not, find other mentorship opportunities, because we all need that guidance. I wish I had that when I was younger. I wish I knew what anxiety was when I was younger. I wish I knew what was going on with me and why I was so terrified about everything in my early 20s. I also do counseling with a lot of young adults where they're like, oh, by the time I'm 21 or 22 and I don't have my whole future figured out, there's something wrong with me. Well, that's not the case either. You know, your brain is still developing. There's still so much going on. You need to give yourself that time, but also don't abuse your brain, because if you're between the ages of, 16 to 27, 28 for boys, if you're drinking and smoking and killing your brain cells and not allowing your brain to develop properly, you're going to have problems in your 30s, 40s, and 50s because your frontal lobe is not properly developed. So give your brain a chance to develop properly if you want to have a really good future in life and whether in your relationships or your career and profession.
Yeah. And I think mentorship is like this hidden resource that I hope we bring more of it to the surface, because as I shared, right, when Scott became my mentor, that's when things really started to click for me. And I probably had many mentors in my childhood who, obviously, I don't think a parent can be a mentor, because a parent is always going to be a parent first. But a lot of the times when I'm talking with moms, they'll say, like, what can I do to help my 18-year-old son who's failing to launch? And like, to be honest, like, there really isn't like a ton of things that you can just force him to do, right? Because he's his own young man. Typically what I say is, I said, your voice is so close to him. Like, he sees you as mom. And one of the really big reframes that I've realized, because I've talked to so many moms and I've said like the same things over and over again, I've realized that the sons see their mom as it's an extension of them, right? So if the son is struggling, by default, the son's probably like, mom's struggling, right? So of course, mom wants me to do good because then it's a reflection on her. So, right. So it's almost like, does she really care about me, like just as me as her son? Or does she want this so that she can like put a Facebook post up that I got Dean's List at college? Right. Like there's definitely a dynamic there. So when I come in and say, hey, dude, you're vaping, you're drinking, you're smoking weed, you're playing video games. Do you want to get a job? It doesn't matter to me if he does it or not, because there's no status play. And that's the difference that I'm noticing with a lot of these guys is it's a lot of it is the same information that the mom has said. It's just coming from me.
Yeah.
So there's no like status or recognition. I wasn't there for his first step. I wasn't there for his 10th birthday or when he got his car, right? I'm a completely third party. And so this was the same vibe that I got from Scott when he was like, you ready to figure out your life? And I remember thinking to myself, like, it doesn't really matter to him, like if I say yes or no. Right. Like, so why not say yes? And so that's, I think, the dynamic that I'm trying to communicate to a lot of these moms. And selfishly, yes, it does be that guy into the picture where it's like, hey, we can do this for your son. Like, that's the whole point, right? Isn't the goal to get your son to point B of he has a job, he's independent, he's confident, he's happy. Imagine what that's going to do for your life. You get to finally go on the vacations with your spouse. You get to get the massage on the Monday morning instead of worrying about your son, right? Like those are the things that I'm working on communicating to moms specifically so that they can see that and be like, oh, my voice is just too close to them right now.
Well, children learn to tune out their parents at a very young age. I mean, I'm a psychologist. I help teenagers and young adults all the time in my practice, but I don't have that influence on my own child.
Mm-hmm.
So she will not listen to me. I could say the same thing that she's hearing on TikTok, but if she hears it on TikTok, it's way more valuable.
Right.
And
Isn't that so interesting? And I've experienced that, right? Like I just actually posted something yesterday or 2 days ago. I remember when I was training in high school for college football, I trained with this defensive end from Princeton, this D1 huge guy. And he said, hey, I drink 3 protein shakes a day to keep up with my protein intake. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I need to start doing that. Went home that day, hammered 3 protein shakes. My father was like, dude, I've been telling you to do this for 6 months. Like, what happened? I was like, oh, well, it's like he told me to do it and I did it immediately. Right. So there's probably so many instances where, right, people have had their parents tell them something. They say, sounds good, mom, dad. And then 20 minutes later, somebody else says it and they're like, hey, that's a great idea. Right. It's the same content. It's a different dynamic.
yeah, like I said, I get paid to help other people's kids, but yet my own kid I can't. So if I couldn't do it as a mental health professional, an average parent has, the same issues.
Exactly.
And I was just doing a podcast interview with somebody, and she says, I help people all the time in my boot camps and stuff, and I say the same things you're just saying, but I know they're going to listen to you now because they've heard me say it over and over again. It's just not registering anymore. But if they hear it from somebody else saying the same thing, they're going to be more open to it. So it's not just kids. It's just all us adults. We just need a new way of hearing it in order for it to register.
Yeah. I think it's just us humans, right? I think we have BS filters, right? Especially with our parents, right? So, if you tell me to do something, I'm like, hey, she's a doctor. I probably should listen to her, right? If my mom says, I'm like, mom, you're not a doctor and you're my mom, right? Could have been the same thing.
But I'm saying that even my own child, it doesn't matter whether I am or not. So
right. So that's your own problem, unfortunately.
Well, I'm saying a TikTok influencer has way more influence on my own child than I would, where I can help other people's kids. And so this isn't something we take personally.
Yeah.
If we can have somebody else come in and say the same thing, or we're aligned with what the message that they're teaching, have that person talk to your kid. Whoever that is. We used to live in a global community where we had grandparents talking to us. We had neighbors talking to us. We had teachers talking to us. Kids don't have that anymore. Let's go find those people for them. It doesn't have to be us. It's not an ego thing. Get the kids the help that they need, whether it doesn't have to be from us. And usually it shouldn't be from us because kids will hear it from an outside source way more than they would from their own parents. So well, this was such a great conversation. I love talking to you about this. Can you tell us a little bit about where people can find you and connect with you?
Yeah. So if anybody's on social media, I'm typically most active on Instagram. So you can follow me at DJ Logory, DJ Logory. I post every day. A lot of that stuff is derived more towards young men. And so we also have a YouTube channel that I'm starting to post more stuff on. You can just type in, you can do like / be that guy with 2 Y's. It's actually our YouTube channel. And then our website is bethatguyclub.com. I call it a cool club that we're building. So you can check us out there. And we got pages for young men there and pages for moms as well. So they can kind of see the pain that we're first kind of helping them relieve in their life, and how by default, it's also going to obviously help their son as well. So bethatguyclub.com, at DJ Logory on Instagram, and then be that guy with 2 Y's on YouTube.
I will have all of that on your show notes so people can reach out to you. But thank you so much for being here and having this discussion with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love this discussion as well, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Mental Health Break podcast. It would really help us get discovered by others if you do. And now you can text us directly and share your thoughts with us about this episode. If you're interested in joining the Happiness Project, visit drsicandry.com/happiness-project. Until next time.